This episode is sponsored in part by MKL Reeds. MKL is the one-stop shop for handmade oboe reeds where you can try reeds from various makers and select the one that is best for you. Visit mklreeds.com and enter coupon code DOUBLEREEDDISH for free shipping on your first order. That's coupon code DOUBLE_REED_DISH, all caps, for free shipping on your first order.
Dedicated to providing excellent handmade oboe and bassoon reeds to discriminating double reed players of all ages and abilities, Double or Nothing Reeds has recently expanded to sell double reed tools and supplies, gift items, and more. This includes knives, knife blades, thread, staples, cane, bags, and resources for students. As authorized Fox and Yamaha dealers, they offer an extensive range of oboes and bassoons for all levels. In addition, they sell quality used instruments on consignment. If you're looking for private oboe lessons but can't find anyone nearby, Double or Nothing Reeds offers oboe lessons via Skype. Visit doubleornothingreeds.com for good quality and affordable reed-making supplies and accessories, lessons, instruments, and much more. That's doubleornothingreeds.com.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists, bassoonists,
and the people who love them. Hey, what episode are we on?
Oh my God. 25. No, 24. 24.
Lucky 24.
Not 24. It's the calendar year episode.
Oh, that's true. Yes, because coming up is our 1-year anniversary.
So cute.
I'm excited.
Wait, are we recording?
We're totally recording right now.
Okay, just making sure.
So, calendar year, which means we are nearing the end of the semester and crawling toward Thanksgiving break, which I could not be more excited about. I don't know about you. How are you feeling?
I'm so excited. Jackie, it's a holiday revolving purely around eating food. Like, I just love it so much.
I love the food. It is one of my favorite, meals. And if I can say, I cook a mean Thanksgiving dinner. But also, as I think I mentioned before, SEMO decided to have the wonderful idea of no fall break and a week-long Thanksgiving break. And
Get out of here.
Yeah, in October, I was really feeling bad about not having a fall break because all my students were like Zombieland. It felt like it was the Thriller video in the halls of SEMO. But now that we are rapidly approaching an entire week off, I feel like I'm doing cartwheels down the hallway, just like, it's almost Thanksgiving break. It's only 7 school days till Thanksgiving break. I'm so excited just to get to relax and, wear pajama pants 24/7 and, eat a lot of food.
I'm so excited for Thanksgiving. I don't get a whole week off, unfortunately.
When do you guys come off? Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday. Like the food. Okay, so you know that I have a special diet for my digestive issues.
Yes, I know.
Well, one year, Becky made me a pumpkin pie that was just for me. It was a grain-free, sugar-free, preservative-free pumpkin pie, and it was so good. And I'm telling you, I didn't really eat food except for that pie. I ate 3/4 of a pie, and that was my Thanksgiving meal. It was 4 or 5 years ago, and she just told me that she bought canned pumpkins for another pie, and I'm super pumped.
So it's like that joke you see on TV where someone cuts a dainty sliver of pie and sets it on a plate and then takes the remaining pie plate and walks off with a fork.
Yes, that is my real life. I just love Thanksgiving food. It's so warm and cozy, and Thanksgiving, you're the best.
So how's the end of your semester looking like? Do you have a bunch of performances, or is it slowing down?
I have a bunch of performances. I actually just got to perform the Marcello Concerto with strings.
How did that go?
It was really fun. It was really fun. I had never performed it like as a concerto with strings before, but it's awesome. And it's funny because I normally have a good bit of performance anxiety for concerto type things. Mm-hmm. And with this, it just feels so natural and normal and easy that it's like, I think it's really helping with my performance anxiety. It's like sort of the perfect piece for me at the moment. So by the end of the semester, I will have done it 4 times. And tonight is number 3. I'm going to do it at a cathedral in Biloxi, Mississippi, with the Magnolia Concert Society. And it's really fun. And then doing some orchestra gigs and planning my end of the year party for the oboes in December. So it's going to be good. I'm excited.
First, I want to say I am such a fan of the multiple performances of a piece.
Oh, it's awesome.
There's almost nothing that bums me out more than the one and done. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When you put all this effort into repertoire and learning, and then you just kind of perform it once, and you're like, okay, on to the next. I love getting to do multiple performances of something, especially like a concerto or something like that, Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, and it's like, I like the Marcello, but I had never like really fallen in love with with it. But like now I'm like really falling in love with it, and I'm sort of doing that a little bit late in my oboe life. It's not that difficult of a piece, so a lot of high schoolers learn it, and young college students learn it, and it's just kind of wonderful to come back to it with like more love and appreciation. And I find that the performance process teaches me as much as the practice process. So you're totally right. It's awesome to perform something multiple times.
Well, and you don't really get to practice performing a concerto. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing where when you get the opportunity, it's there. But, we can practice being with piano, we can practice recitals and that type of stuff, but a concerto is such a unique, kind of more rare thing that's super awesome. You get 5 performances.
Mm-hmm.
Booyah.
Well, 4, but
4 still.
No, it's really great. I'm super excited for it and really happy about it. I don't know, maybe that would be a good like project for, the students and young professionals out there to like put together some strings and some house concerts and, just play all this stuff like in real life so that it becomes a living thing.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. So my end of the semester actually is kind of dissipating to a halt, but my January is shaping up to be completely insane. And so I'm viewing my late November and December as a way to prepare, for my crazy. Just to give you an idea, we come back from the winter break, and I get to be one of the guest artists at Aaron Off's Double Read Day at Jacksonville State. So I'm super excited about that.
Go Aaron.
Yes, I cannot wait. And then 3 days later, I will be hosting my own Double Read Day with Melissa Bosma from Oklahoma State, which I can't wait for. And then 3 days after that is my faculty recital, where I will be playing the Barrio Sequenza for the first time.
Wow.
So yeah, it's going to be a very hectic week, and I will, prepare for it, and it'll all be fine. But for it to all be fine, I kind of have to be thinking about it now. So I'm really excited that the last part of the semester is less intense, so I can kind of be looking forward and making a ton of reads and, all that stuff that we do.
What is your, when you're in the heat of the, this crazy part of the semester for you, what are your, coping techniques?
Peppermint tea. I know it's a quintessentially, native thing to cope with peppermint tea, but it does actually help, and it can really help settle your stomach. And before bed is a really good idea because it can just kind of aid with sleep and settle your mind. I've actually been known to give the SEMO kids who I notice are really stressed out, bags of peppermint tea and just like drink this before you go to bed. Your life will be fine. It won't take care of everything, but even if it's a placebo effect, I'm fine with using peppermint tea for the placebo effect, but that's my thing.
I've heard that the placebo is the most powerful drug.
Why not? You know, if it's just like a moment to tell yourself you're going to be fine, you're going to be calm now, you're going to get a good night's sleep, then, hey, works for me. So for my shout out this week, I'm shouting out a little article on the Violin Channel, and it's actually kind of more of an extended quote from violinist Kathleen Winkler, and it's titled "How Competitions Can Shape Your Life and Career." And I'm not going to read the whole quote, but essentially it talks about how for this professional, she had the dream of being a concertmaster or playing in a string quartet, and her first job out of college was at a small private university music department, and she was doing a lot of non-major courses like music appreciation, or smaller scale chamber music coaching, and it was for minimal pay, and she was just kind of feeling frustrated and dissatisfied. So someone suggested that she do the Carl Nielsen International Violin Competition in Denmark, and she talks about, she ended up winning the competition, but really the point of the blog is more about having this big goal outside of her daily life, helped her to really channel her energy and her focus in practicing and get beyond the things that were kind of dissatisfying about her day-to-day job, and helped her capitalize on practice time and motivation and momentum and all that type of stuff. And it made me reflect on why I chose to take on the Bariosi Cleansa, you know, and kind of remind myself of, like, you know, the benefit of a big goal, the benefit of a big project. So I loved reading this. We'll link to it in the show notes, definitely.
Very cool.
Yeah. And, you know, competition, it has different, I guess it manifests differently with different people. Some people really thrive in a competitive environment and some people not so much. But this article kind of talks more about competition with oneself, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast. And yeah, it just kind of made me reflect on daily goals, big goals, small goals, and competition with myself.
That's awesome. I think as performers, we rely on the validation of others, you know, like external motivators a lot, especially, you know, it's easy to do that as a student, and then, you know, you need the approval of a committee in order to get a job, and it's all, you know, it can be very external focused, but to move it inward, I think, is so much more powerful and longer lasting, and I think that's awesome.
And empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some cool competitive opportunities going on right now, are there not?
There is, actually. For the oboes out there, they have announced, IDRS has announced the repertoire for the 2018 Young Artist Competition for Oboe. It's an oboe year this year. And it looks really good. It's the Telemann Fantasy No. 8 in E minor, the Kromer Oboe Concerto No. 2 in F major, and Alyssa Morris's Four Personalities, movements 1, 3, and 4, and then the Godard Legende Pastorale from Saint-Écossais. Oh my God, I don't know French. I'm so sorry to all the people who know French.
Actually, at the start of that, I was like, oh, she's doing good. I could not do that good, so I'm not one to help you out.
If it makes anyone feel better, I'm trying to learn French on Duolingo. So I'm working on it, but many apologies to all the French speakers out there for the massacre of that word. That's for the final round. But yeah, this is a really great opportunity for oboists who have not reached their 22nd birthday by the date of the final round, which is August 30th, 2018. So this is specifically for young people, and it's worldwide, and it's a huge opportunity to go for something big, and you never know when it may pay off really big for you too.
Well, and that means that this is a Gillet Fox year for the bassoons. So that information is also available on January 1st, but likewise with the oboe competition, they have the repertoire up. It looks like the Saint-Saëns Sonata, Mozart Concerto, Bach Sonata No. 2, and Kirk O'Riordan, Temptation for Solo Bassoon, and that information is on idrs.org, and that's for even older people up to your 31st birthday. And I also want to be sure to mention the Bassoon Chamber Music Composition Competition. Their deadline is December 15th, and they are looking for pieces for bassoon by women composers, and that's going to be the material for the Meg Quigley competition, which will be coming up next time in January of 2019. So if you compose, or if you know any friends who compose and are women, make sure to put that on their radar. We want to make sure to support them as well.
Awesome.
Jenna Engel loves the oboe. She has built her business on providing high-quality, handmade reeds, education, and a sympathetic ear to oboists across the country. When you order from Jenna Engel Reeds, you get prompt communication, reeds or cane handcrafted to your specifications, and cheerful, friendly customer service. All orders are mailed within 1 week, sometimes much faster. Single orders or monthly reed subscriptions are welcome, and she'll work with you to find the combination of response, resistance, stability, and flexibility that's right for you. Double Reed Dish listeners can use the code DISH, that's DISH, all caps, for 10% off your first order at janetengel.com. Since day one, Genda reed knives have been the highest quality and the sharpest reed knives on the market, and Genda Industries has been a driving force in educating double reed players on how to sharpen and maintain their reed knives, since it is the single most important tool in our reed making kit. Now, Genda has launched a full line of sharpening equipment to meet your sharpening needs. They are offering a wide variety of full-size and travel-size sharpening stones, strops, and compounds that can be utilized in the studio, the music hall, or on the go, and will make your sharpening better. You've got a good reed knife, now it's time to start using good sharpening equipment. Add the code DRDGenda, all caps, no spaces, at checkout and get 10% off any Genda reed knife, maintenance kit, reed knife sharpening book, cutting block, and reed tool roll. Visit them at gendaindustries.com. That's JENDEINDUSTRIES.com. Oh, and they're more than just reed knives.
We are so excited to welcome to Double Reed Dish Courtney Miller, Assistant Professor of Oboe at the University of Iowa. Courtney, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and spend this time with you ladies.
We have a stock first question, but it's a really great jumping off point. Can you please tell us about your training and educational journey and how you got to where you are today?
That is a great way to start off. So I started playing the violin when I was quite young. My mom put me in violin lessons and Suzuki violin lessons, as a lot of parents do. And so I was 3 or 4 and playing the Twinkle Twinkle variations, all different types of ways, possibly holding the bow somewhat correctly on the string. I don't know. And I continued with violin for many years, and then I got to junior high school, and I wanted to be in the school music program. I grew up in Florida, and we have a lot of band programs in Florida, but my school district did not have an orchestra program. So at that point in time, I showed up and did a little instrument zoo, and, I had in my mind either oboe or French horn. And I tried to buzz into the mouthpiece of the French horn, and it just, try as I might, it was not happening. But on the oboe, I made this, noise immediately, and I think that's a good thing for a beginning oboist, is just to immediately make sound without a lot of production. And that's kind of how I became an oboist, or began my journey on the oboe. And I, continued to play through high school, did youth orchestra, and I did my undergraduate at Florida State University and studied with Eric Olson. And Glee, I know that we have a common mentor.
Love him. I love him.
He's so wonderful, absolutely, and still a part of my life today, which I really love.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the Cleveland Institute of Music for my master's, so John Mack was my teacher there. And I guess, we all have these snap memories in our heads of important events, and I think one of my, just this freeze frame situation was I was just hanging out at home and I got a phone call. And just to date it a little bit, it was an actual landline, but it was a phone call. And on the other end was John Mack, and he said, "Is this Courtney?" And I said, well, yes. He goes, "This is John Mack. I'm here to welcome you to the Cleveland Institute of Music family."
Aww.
And it was just so special. It's just one of those, I think my heart stopped, I think I probably got a little teary-eyed. I didn't even know how to respond. Of course, yes, but that was a very special way to receive your acceptance. So I went to the Institute, the Cleveland Institute of Music, and I studied with John Mack, and it was kind of a really amazing time to study with him because he had just retired from the orchestra. So he had I think a lot of spare time. I'm doing spare time in quotes with my fingers. But I was really amazing. So he did all the chamber music coaching for woodwind players. He ran the woodwind sectionals for orchestra, did the orchestra readings, and he did lessons and studio class. So it seemed like I saw him almost every day. So it was really just incredible, and he was very giving with his time and very supportive. In my first year at CIM, there were a couple of regional orchestra auditions, and I won 2 of them. I won a position with the Canton Symphony and then this group called City Music, and that was really wonderful because then I was playing in the community, and getting those 2 jobs immediately put me on the sub list for a lot of different orchestras. So at CIM, I was playing with the school orchestra and the regional orchestras, and that's only important because once I graduated, I already had a lot of work with the Cleveland Pops, the Cleveland Opera, a variety of groups, and so I decided, well, I'll stay in Cleveland, I'll take auditions, I'll build a studio, and that's pretty much how my life was for about 6 or 7 years, and it was a really good life. I ended up building a studio of about 30 students, and I was adjunct professor at this university called Ashland University, and I never really wanted for work. I ended up playing, I think, about 3 subscription concerts a month and a pop, so I was really very busy, and musical life in a lot of ways was very, very good. However, I was kind of restless, and I was taking auditions, and I mentioned that a little bit. And, I'm sure we've all taken auditions in our life. I mean, obviously, from youth orchestra to collegiate to professional to summer music festivals, it's kind of a constant in our lives. And there were years where I would do really well, and I was hot, and I would make finals a lot, but there was this small missing piece. And it's a small detail, really, but I wasn't actually winning. And you hate to even focus on such a small aspect, but
Negative Nancy over here, geez.
I know, you have to even bring that up. And I'm not sure if any of you have gone through a period of time where you're not quite getting exactly what you want. Maybe that's just called life. So as I was in my late 20s at this point, thinking, well, my life is very good. I'm playing music. I've got wonderful students. Do I even dare to dream bigger? What should I do here? And but clearly, as far as the big job hunt for the audition circuit on orchestras, it wasn't working out. And I figured if it was going to work out, I had to change something I was doing. I had to either give up on myself and say, well, I'm not good enough, or just change something in the equation. So I opted for the latter. I opted to be a little more objective about it and just say, what can I do to become better? So at that point in time, I took some lessons with some people, and one of those people happened to be John Ferrillo, who is, we all know who John Ferrillo is, principal of the Boston Symphony. And, I went to Boston, played for him, and we really hit it off. And I auditioned for my doctorate with him, and then that kind of started the next phase of my life, the next creative chunk. So I left everything in Cleveland, hopped in my car, and started my DMA with him at Boston University. He was an amazing teacher. I say that about all my teachers, and one thing I realized listening to your podcast is everybody feels that way about their teachers. And I think that's really a strong testament to our profession. Everybody you've had on the show has been like, I've had the best teachers, and I think it's really wonderful that we can say that, and I absolutely feel that way. I'm indebted to all of my teachers so very much. So when John Ferrillo found me, I would say that I was a pretty good player. I was professional. I had been well trained, and he took me up and he polished me right up. He worked me very hard, but I'm so thankful to him. In his teaching, his work with me on tone production and creativity and nuance. He opened up worlds of imagination and creativity that I didn't even know was possible with just a single note. And I mean, I think that I always practice to improve, but I feel like he's just raised the ceiling. Like there's no roof on creativity in practice or performance with him. And yeah, that's a long story short story long, maybe a little bit of both.
It seemed like in Cleveland, your life was maybe focused on the goal of an orchestral position. I know you said you had a really sizable studio. A lot of times we think of the DMA as, kind of for someone hoping to pursue academia. Did you feel a shift from performance to pedagogy in terms of focus, or did you always emphasize both equally? I'm kind of interested in your views on that when you went into your DMA.
I think pedagogy is always a part of our lives. It's that, the two sides of the same coin, performing and teaching. They sharpen one another. We get inspired by our students, and we perform, and then we have ideas that we take to our students, and vice versa. I'm trying to think back to, 29 or 30-year-old Courtney, and I wasn't, sometimes we think we know what we want out of life. And it's hard to know where we got these ideas. Maybe someone else put these ideas in our heads. Mm-hmm. But, like in order to be successful, you have to be a principal oboist of a major symphony orchestra. And I think that's, what a lot of us grew up hearing, certainly the older generation. And something you deal with on your show a lot is redefining success.
Right.
I don't know that there was a shift directly, because I love teaching. I've always loved teaching. And the fact that I had an oboe studio of 30 students testifies to that. So, I mean, when I left Cleveland, one of the things that I actually missed the most was my students. It's a weird thing to say, but I really missed them. Especially the ones that would start when they were 12 and then you'd watch them grow up. I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking for when I left Cleveland to Boston. I didn't have a necessary end goal, but I knew that I wanted to become a better musician, a better oboe player, and just change something in the equation of my life. And I really looked to John Ferrillo as an incredible performer and teacher to help me with that. And I will also say that, John Mack, incredibly caring, incredibly devoted, as was Eric Olson. And when I first moved to Boston, I had this conversation with myself, like any sane person does. We talk to ourselves. And I said, you have to manage your expectations here. This will just be 1 hour a week. He's very busy. He will not, be able to give you the kind of care that your other teachers have. And boy, was I wrong with that statement. Because in Boston, I found not only just an incredible player and teacher, but also another, I can't believe I'm so lucky, another really wonderful mentor who was devoted to teaching. So in the shift from performing to teaching, I think all my teachers have naturally been incredibly devoted, passionate, and dedicated teachers. So that's something that's just been modeled to me for the past, 20 years.
No, I think it's great because, I think a lot of our listeners maybe don't have all the answers or the perfect plan. I'm sure some are very hyper-focused on a specific goal, and some are probably, maybe feel insecure that goal is not so defined other than I love my instrument. So I think it's really good, to hear all sorts of experiences.
I also want to say that I'm happy to talk about how my focus, there was a time in my life where my focus did absolutely switch to college teaching, but that was actually one summer while I was in Boston, and I can actually pinpoint to a specific 2 or 3 month period where I was doing some soul searching.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Well, I think it was between my second and third year of my DMA. I had just finished a recital, as one does, and practiced extremely hard, paid attention to every nuance, taped myself a lot, and, I performed, maybe there were, 5 or 6 people in the audience, and it just kind of, I don't know, and it was at the end of the year. So at this point in my life, I was still faculty at Baldwin Wallace Conservatory. They have this summer music program called the want to say it's called the Summer Music Institute still. And I had this short drive of 11 hours from Boston to Cleveland. And, I had just played this recital, and, it's a good time to spend with myself, just kind of thinking about some small subjects' life, what am I doing with my life? Does what I do matter? Why do I do what I do? Why do we care if every single note ends beautifully and we resolve the phrase properly? Things like that. So small subject matters to tackle. I just started thinking about, in a lot of ways in my life, a disconnect between the things, music, what I'm so passionate about, and my friends who are non-musicians, and just how we really don't understand each other's worlds. And I just kind of started thinking how I love music. I love playing the oboe, and it's one of the things that drives me every day. And how can I relate to people who aren't musicians? How can I help them understand my world? Is playing a beautiful recital, is it helping? Does it help the connection that I might have personally with other people, or even music with society? So again, this conversation, this thought process took a good 11 hours there and then back, but I just started thinking about common interests, things that I might like, that maybe essentially finding common ground with the audience or my friends, that common shared interests that could help them understand my world. So we could find something we both like that I could use to invite them into my world, and likewise help me understand parts of their world that I didn't understand. And I started several projects, and they all kind of started this summer. On a similar note, I'd always wanted to record this piece by Marcia Krauss called Three Fairy Tales. I came across it in around 2003 when I was doing my undergrad at Florida State, and I was supposed to record it in Cleveland with the composer funding it, and funding fell through, and so it's just been kind of on my back burner. And I always told myself, when I get a real job, whatever that is, that's in quotations again, when I've made it, I'll make my CD, I'll record it then. And I think on this drive, I just said, no, I'm going to do the things I want to do now, whatever they are. I'm going to record a CD now. I'm in Boston now. I've got great musicians around me. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm going to take advantage of the many really wonderful things in my life right now. And so that summer I embarked on the process of making my first CD as a DMA student. And then I took on some what I would consider less serious projects, just more fun, working with some different dancers and other aspects that really fed my soul, and also I felt would help connect me with people who maybe didn't spend hours every day practicing their instruments.
So what was that recording process like as a DMA student who also had responsibilities? You were working and learning.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but so, DMA, I was definitely working a lot. I mean, I ran John Ferrillo's company, Harvard Double Reads. I was a full-time student. I had a teaching assistantship at BU. I was also teaching at Boston College adjunct. I was running the NEC Prep Read class with John Ferrillo. And there were a couple other odd things I was doing in there as well. So, recording. I think I'm the kind of person that if I really believe in something or if I'm passionate about it, I'll just, hate to say barrel through. And that's essentially what it was. But the process was it was over the summer when we have a little bit of time to breathe is when I started putting my ducks in a row. And at this point, I had some friends who were on a CD label. And I contacted them and, said, can you put me in contact? Can you advise me? How should I go about doing this? And it's interesting. One thing I felt when I was doing the CD process, and I use the word felt, but I would say that I was surrounded by good people. And I'm not talking about oboists or teachers or anything here, just good people in life. But most people were negative when I started investigating this possibility for a variety. Who knows the reasons? It's the whole in the South. Oh, bless your heart. That kind of thing where, they're saying something nice, but maybe, bless her heart. Bless him. So most people kind of dissuaded me, but eventually I got to someone who said, well, I don't really encourage this, but if you want to do it, here's how you can do it. So I had several live recordings of this song cycle that I was really passionate. I'm still really passionate about. It's a great song cycle. It's about 20-25 minutes, and it goes through three fairy tales with soprano, oboe, and piano. And it's extremely fun and extremely challenging. And the crowd audience loves it. It hadn't been recorded, and it was written for my teacher, John Mack, and anyway, he was a live recording of him doing it, but nothing studio done. So that was the motivating factor, was just Song Cycle. So I sent in a demo to Centaur Record Company. I had a cover letter. I did send in some headshots, and I sent it via my connection, who already was a recording artist with them, just to make sure it got to the proper person. And some time went by, and then I received a contract. And so at this point, I had a contract with this record label. I didn't have the rest of my repertoire planned. I did not necessarily have my musicians planned, and I didn't have any money. But these were small things, really. I had the contract, and I used that as the driving force. I thought, especially as a DMA student, it gave me validity, so that it gave me the confidence to approach people and say, this is happening. I'm not approaching you saying I'm dreaming about making a CD. I have a contract that says in a year I will submit the master to this company. So there's a project, it's identified, and there's a concrete deadline. And then I just start, many people helped me. I'm incredibly indebted to my sound engineer, Jim Donahue, who was wonderful to work with, just absolute star. I mean, so many people. This project had a real, I want to say, hometown feel to it, but everybody involved in this project was emotionally connected to it. They were really excited about it, and I just felt like I had a really good team, and we were all in it to create a really outstanding musical endeavor. I didn't, so that was part of that experience, and I can go into more or less detail about that. And I just recorded another CD this summer, and it was a very different experience. It was less hard, if that's a correct English. It was easier this time around, for sure.
So for somebody out there who's listening who might have like an inkling that they maybe want to do that in the future, what are the steps that they should take in order to make that happen for themselves?
I can break it down. There are a couple different ways you can go about doing it. Like right now I don't have a label, but I think if you're young, we're all young. I think having a contract beforehand has some challenges. It's motivating, but then it's also extreme pressure. I remember being very stressed out in the last month of editing because we really had to get this done, or the contract would be null and void. I would say if you want to make a CD, I would say believe in the repertoire and have a concrete reason for why you want to do it. And if you're passionate about a project and you really believe in it and you have legitimate reasons for believing in it, I would say absolutely go for it and come at it from all different angles. And if you hit brick walls, which let me tell you, assuredly you will, just keep trying to break them down, and it might mean that you have to come at that from 360 degrees, every single degree around that problem. But you'll find a way. And as far as financing was the biggest hurdle for me at that point in time. And some people do crowdsourcing. There are many ways. I had what I call a crummy gig fund. So sometimes, if you take a gig that kind of sucks your soul, we've all been there, put that in a separate bank account and put that in, and put it towards something that actually feeds your soul, if you can. And I took on credit card debt for this CD, and I don't know that, again, it's all on where you are in your life, but it was kind of a gamble. It paid off, but I would say that if you really believe in something, do it, and the rest you'll find a way to make the small details work out. Small details should never stand in your way from doing something that's actually great or that you really believe in.
Thank you. That's good advice.
You referred to your dance project, and I'd love for you to talk more about that. We'll make sure to link to your dance videos in the show description. But I've watched them before and enjoyed them. The Mozart Oboe Quartet, I believe it's in the Boston Common, perhaps, and the Eber belly dance. Talk to our listeners about what inspired you to do that and what you learned from it and how it relates to that goal that you referred to of making what we do more accessible or reaching more people.
Well, these were what I just call my fun box of projects. There was really absolutely no logical reason for me to from anybody on the outside, for me to make these videos, because they were a lot of work. But I mean, for me, there were so many reasons. This was back when and the show's still on, So You Think You Can Dance is still on, and it's still doing really well. But this was maybe in the third or fourth season, and I I was really into it. It kind of gave me a lens into the art world where it wasn't music, so something similar. And it was interesting watching how, physical movement, interpreting music more than just ballet, which was generally what I had been a little more familiar with. So I really enjoyed that show. But this was part of the whole finding common ground, finding something that might have more widespread appeal than just maybe an oboist. I feel that as an oboist, we may not have the mass appeal that we might desire. We're not a common word, but at this particular point in time, So You Think You Could Dance had auditions in Boston. And I thought, I'd watch the show, and I think it would just be an incredible experience to work with a hip-hop dancer. So I watched the show specifically for people who were excellent hip-hop dancers, but maybe couldn't do all the other genres and were going to get cut. So that I had a specific thing I was looking for, and the first guy I approached, actually, he'll remain nameless, but he was wonderful. He got back to me immediately, and he was in Boston. He said, I would love to work with you. I can't dance to your music. I've tried, I just can't do it. And so the next person I reached out to was Ernest Phillips, or Enoch. And, he actually, I have to say, he was the person I was most drawn to, but he just seemed so hard-hitting. I was like, I don't know if this can work. I mean, this guy, he's especially some of his physical, the way he physically danced, it's very hard-hitting. He does a lot of crump. It's a lot more impact. And he jumped on it. He emailed me back the very next day. And I said, let's just do it. And at that point in time, we talked a little bit. We kind of had the storyboard going on, and came up a day early. We walked around the Boston Commons and had our map of the video. So we had basically where the different scenes and the different backdrops for each part of the video. And the shoot was actually two of his siblings came, and then I had a really good friend, Solon Mitchell, whom I met when he was at BU, but we actually started working together, and we were both working desk jobs. So again, I was working a job. It was summertime in Boston. I didn't have any money. So I was working a desk job for 8 hours a day. And he was also working there with me. And he did some video work. So they followed us around Boston Commons, and somebody held a boombox with my recording of the Mozart so we could sync it up later. And that was the start of it. And then 6 months editing it with Solon in the basement at Boston University. But so that's kind of how that went, and there's a little bit of a story for each one similar to that. I think cold calling is something I do really well. I have no problem just calling someone up as a random crazy oboist and explaining to them why they definitely need to work with me and how it will change their lives. Everybody needs oboe in their life. They just don't realize it. So that's kind of one of how I approach these cold calls. And I'm currently working with a wonderful dancer, Kristen Mars at University of Iowa, and we've just kind of wrapped up a 2-year collaboration that's blown my mind. And her interest is ballet and modern dance, and we just went on tour and did basically an entire half recital that's just a duet between oboe and dancer, and we performed at IDRS. And there will be some upcoming videos of us that I'm really excited about as well.
Kind of a follow-up to that, you strike me as someone who has creative ideas and then just says, okay, I'm going to go do that. And that's something that I think is really admirable. And a lot of people, perhaps myself included, I don't know, have ideas and then say, yeah, someday. Kind of like you were saying before with your CD. Oh, someday I'll do that. Yeah, and we don't necessarily give ourselves permission to just pursue or do. Yeah. Do you think that's something inherent to your personality, or did you have to overcome certain things? What advice do you have for people who have ideas that they're not doing right now?
Wow, that's a good question. As all your questions are, I'm fairly inherently quiet. People may not believe that, but I'm actually kind of a quiet person. I let an idea. And again, I have a couple kind of ideas that are in the progress right now that I've written grants for. And writing grants for my seedling ideas were actually really hard because normally I don't share my ideas with the world until I am ready to take all kinds of abuse for them. I don't know if that makes sense. Until I have enough armor built up within my being, within my heart, to withstand people I care about looking at me like I'm crazy. So I think I let them sit and I let them marinate a little bit within me before I take them out into the world. And then I have the boldness, I think, to cut through them. And so one thing John Mack is an incredible inspiration to my life always, and he had this inner confidence about him. When you played for him, when you were with him, you just felt like $1 million. And he would even use that word. You're like, you sound like $1 million today. But he had these just quick, small visualizations like, go in there like a knight in shining armor. I don't know that he ever went to a motivational speaker or anything, but he was definitely a real motivating force. And especially when I first went to CIM, I felt like an underdog. I don't think anybody would look at me now and say I'm an underdog, but my first year at at CIM, I felt like an underdog. I was playing in a different arena. I come from a state university a little bit. Everybody else there, was either started their undergrad there or just had a little bit different, maybe more, I don't want to say impressive background, but, just a little bit different experiences than I had growing up. So I think there's always a little bit of this still underdog drive in me. But advice is, and let me be real here, all my ideas don't work, okay? All my ideas are not good ideas. Sometimes I pitch an idea or I try it and I hit enough walls and I really rethink it. I'm like, maybe this one should just die. Mm-hmm. Or it dies and I retweak it a little bit. So I have a lot of really bad ideas too. But I think just, persistence and in every successful project, there's going to be a set of failures that the world doesn't see behind that success, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, even though I do creative things with the oboe, I think this is probably inherent, but my approach to the oboe is very, very traditional. So, when I first said I was going to do a hip-hop video, they're like, oh, you're going to add beats. And I'm like, no. So I really believe in Mozart, and I really believe in all of the nuances and the inflections, and I want to say the traditional way in which we approach it. So when I do collaborate, or when I do collaborate or work with someone in a different genre, I believe we strengthen each other by holding absolutely true to our values and what we're trained to do. So I don't really ever, when I approach a collaboration, I never want to ever water down what I do, but rather use a different genre or a different perspective to strengthen what I do.
I have a follow-up question to that, and it might be a little winding, but bear with me.
Okay.
Your answer really reminds me of a few months ago, Jackie, when we interviewed Dan Schwartz for the Maverick series. He talked about composing and how playing his own compositions helps his performance anxiety because he made it. So he's the premier authority on his own work.
Yeah.
And I wonder, Courtney, if that is also true for these really interesting, cross-genre collaborations that you do with people outside of music. Does that, your ownership of that, does that make the performance anxiety better? Or, I'm just curious about how that impacts your performance mentality.
Oof, well, we're going into, there's lots of things in that question. Wow, I don't know that. So with collaboration, one of the things that's challenging about it that I love is that I might have an idea of where I want it to go when I start, but whenever you collaborate with someone else who's an expert in their field, they know their field. So I always end up leaving my initial, what I think is the bullseye when I start a project is not actually the bullseye when we begin working on it or when we end it, because we do genuinely influence each other. And that's one of the things I really love about it. I will definitely have something set that I want to accomplish with this person, but as we begin working together, and I really felt this way with Kristen, especially, every week, last semester I go over to the ballet studio and we just work together and play and move together in the ballet studio. Where we ended up was way different than anything I could have perceived when we started. Even that rehearsal that day, I actually was pretty nervous performing with Kristen. So I don't know that it helped my nerves. I think I was nervous performing with Kristen because I felt a little vulnerable. I think, when we play a duet with a musician, you're not out there as much. But when there's no music stand or when you're communicating through two different mediums, visual and sound, I just felt like I had to open up a little more of myself or myself differently than if I'm not just playing chamber music, but playing chamber music with with my colleagues. I think what I love about collaborations is it brings a different perspective, and it brings to life a part of me I didn't know existed, that I couldn't perceive of or find on my own. So I guess maybe I'm using my collaborators a little bit, if that sounds a little selfish, but I think we both bring something out in each other, that was one of the most inspiring things last semester, were those rehearsals with Kristen. And it definitely influenced the rest of my day and week. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, and it sounds like, opening it, it forced you to open yourself to the audience in a way that you wouldn't normally have to.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially with the Elliott Carter, moving around stage, being part of the choreography, and having her at various points in that she never hit me. But, I watched the video and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right up on me there. I had no idea that you're behind me, So just, vulnerability in a lot of ways, including having to explain, and communicate about music to someone who's not a musician. And she definitely had to communicate many things. I mean, walking is hard for me. Like, one of our first rehearsals, she goes, I was under the impression you could walk and play the oboe. And I was under that impression too. But, we live and we learn.
So you talked to us about your first CD. Do you have any future plans to record? What's next on the docket for you in that regard?
Oh, well, I'm really excited about this project that I'm just wrapping up. It's a recording project and performing project of music for the oboe by Portuguese composers. And cool. It's been a lot of fun. So most people don't have a Portuguese composer that rolls off the tip of their tongue if they're an oboist. But I now do. I feel like I have household names and fairly good friends across the ocean that I've been working on with this project the past couple of years. So I started this project by collaborating with a pianist in Boston named Inés Andrade, and she's Portuguese from Lisbon. And she started integrating Portuguese compositions into some of her recitals, and I really enjoyed them. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about Portuguese music. Maybe there's some stuff for oboe, and I started doing research, and there's a lot for oboe by Portuguese composers. And so I listened to about 40 or 50 different composers' works, and, stalked oboists over there, Facebook stalked composers, contacted several of them, and I have this CD of about 70 minutes worth of music that is all for the oboe and world premiere recordings, and 3 of them are new commissions that I approached the composer, and they were kind enough to write a piece for me and work with me in the process. And it's all, basically music written in the past decade, except there is one transcription by Antonio Fragoso that was written for the violin around the turn of the 20th century. But everything else is very recent. It's a lot of fun to play, very accessible to the audience, and that's about my new project, and I'm in the final editing stages now, so hopefully that's coming out sometime in the near future.
Very exciting.
That is awesome. I would like to know, considering your very busy schedule, how do you fit in your practice time, and how do you prioritize, your goals for the day?
That's such a good question, and I love listening to your guests talk about that. I love practicing. I love specifically long tones and scales and that kind of fundamental practice that strengthens me, basically gets my mouth and my just gets me set for the whole day, so that it just improves my playing the rest of the day. I'm having to shift my schedule to be more of an early bird. I'm not an early bird, definitely not by any means of comparison, but I think somewhere in the past decade doing all these freelancing and contract orchestras, and actually this is the first year since 2004 that I'm not a contract member of an orchestra. So it's kind of a new place in my life, but I think driving back at 11 p.m. and midnight for so many years, it kind of put my sleep cycle later to bed, later to rise, and I really find that I need to get a warm-up in before I start teaching. And if I get that kind of zen time with the oboe and me, then that's great. And I love doing deep work. You've talked a lot about that. I love going home at the end of the day and it's my oboe and me. The day is done. I get to just spend that quality time And it is quality time. I really enjoy that, and I also, though we don't always have that time. So if I have 10 minutes, I'll use it. I'll have a specific goal. I said, well, this technical passage has to be faster, so that'll be my goal, and I'll might work on it in that half an hour lunch break. And usually you do short sessions throughout the day, especially with more technical goals. And you will, I definitely see improvement, but I do find that I'm squeezing in practice time right before recital wherever I can. But it's a challenge because, we do as teachers, all of my teachers put their students first, and I certainly hope I do the same because our job as teachers is definitely to do that. So it is a challenge.
It is, and especially as a faculty member, it would be wonderful if teaching and playing was all that we had to do, but you also have that, meeting or that committee you're prepping for or, that other thing. There are a lot of things to juggle.
That true words were never spoken, Jack.
My favorite question that we ask is, what is your favorite memory of a past performance?
Oh, that's a really hard question. You do end a lot with that one, though.
It's really not a fair question.
I was thinking about this, so just so our listeners know, I have a slight confession. I've been binge listening to Double Read Dish. I had about 27 hours in the car this week commuting from different guest lecturing events, and so I've been kind of preparing for this, but it's still tough. I think, for me, the most important ones were actually when I was a senior in high school. And my memory of them is not that clear, but I think what they represented for me and they helped me with my basically decision to go into music. So I would say for that reason they're the most important. I won 2 concerto competitions my senior year, but both on the Mozart with the Jacksonville Symphony, and there was just something, the rush and the joy of playing on stage. It's not all blur. I don't really remember, but just having that experience, and it's a high that I'd never felt before. But also, I was really wrestling. I'm a little type A, and when I say a little type A, probably you could say extraordinarily type A at some levels. Frillo calls me a closet type A. He says, Courtney, it's not obvious to the world that you're type A, but you are. So I think, going into music was really scary for me. So I was a nerd in high school. I'm still a nerd. I was looking at a lot of double degree programs, but then Florida State, was there. I was looking out of state. I was looking at Johns Hopkins. I was looking at schools that were not in state. And I said, I really enjoy this. This was an incredible experience. Maybe if I can do this again, maybe if I can spend my life pursuing this, and it may not work out. But I think that experience, again, it gave me the confidence to just say, I'm going to do music and let's see where this takes me.
I would like to know what the best advice you can give us on reed making is, or what's the best advice on reed making that you have received?
Oh, well, I think almost all the advice that I can give I have received. I feel that I don't do a lot of reinventing of the wheel with reed making, so this is almost so trite, it's not even worth saying, but I will say it because I say it almost every day to someone. John Mack had this saying. He said, never take no from an inanimate object, and it was more than a saying. It actually was crocheted and framed on his wall, and he would point at it at various times. And I think it's still on the wall in Frank Rosenwein's studio, I believe, and the teachers at CIM. And John Mackey had 4 rules of reed making, and I hold by this still. And if I break, especially the first 3, I almost always regret it. And it's very simple, but essentially the first rule of reed making is sharp knife, and the second rule of reed making is sharp knife. You kind of see where this is going. The more redundant and third rule of reed making is sharp knife, and the fourth rule of reed making is being able to clip an infinitesimal amount off of the tip. So I generally find that to this day, if I ruin a reed, which of course never happens, my goodness, perfect. It's because my knife isn't quite sharp and I'm not able to take the cane off in exactly the way that my mind's eye conceives. And John Ferrillo, I just quoted John Mack, but John Ferrillo redefined my reed making. Oh my gosh, he helped my reed making so much. His reeds are incredible. They're so smooth and silky and focused. You feel like you can do anything on those reeds. It's just incredible. You never even know that it was possible. So at this point in life, I mean, I spent the past 4 years, so I was with John Mack for 2 years, then I had 6 or 7 years off. So his teaching really marinated, but then I spent 4 years, in my early 30s with John Perillo. So he completely just took my reed making and transformed it, and really I teach reed making basically the way he teaches reed making. And he's very formulaic. You do this, and this, and you do not stray to the right or the left, because reed making, as far as I'm concerned, it's a formula, and there are many formulas out there. But you don't go inserting variables from one formula into the other, because if you do, your formula becomes unbalanced. So please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying there's only one way to make a reed, but if you have a formula, don't just go willy-nilly changing variables, because that just ends in heartache.
That's really good advice.
We like to close with the question, what words of advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
Well, I think I'll use this question as a way to kind of tie into a couple of my earlier answers, with my favorite performance and the plan. I thought, young Courtney, I thought I had a plan for my life. And it turns out that my life has not gone according to whatever that plan was at all. I think that I thought I got into CIM, I got to sit with John Mack, and, take auditions for a few years, and that just be an orchestral musician. And I have to say that I'm sitting here in my office, University of Iowa, with this job that I love. And I'm actually getting kind of teary-eyed now. I love my job. I love this life that I have. And I'm grateful it didn't pan out the way I thought. Okay. I'm grateful that I had years of turmoil. I would never have said that then, trust me. But my life has had, and I'm not done living yet. That's the other good news. It's not like, it's not like my twilight years I'm looking back, but even in the decades of my 20s and part of my 30s, my life has been full of higher highs and lower lows than my young Courtney could even have known to imagine. I think all those kind of go into who I am as a player and definitely who I am as a teacher. I think that the world we change, and music is changing. How people receive music with the technical, we talk about this all the time, and I think that I'm kind of at the cusp. You and I were talking, that we're not really millennials. We're definitely not. We're after that, but we can kind of see that world a little bit. So my advice is, I guess, let go of the plan a little bit and don't worry so much. I lost a lot of my 20s worrying. And I would say that was just, that's my regret, is my worrying, because things weren't going according to whatever quote unquote plan I thought that I had.
That's the deep cut right there.
That's right. Courtney, this has been such a wonderful interview. When our listeners want to follow up with you, where can they find you on the internet?
Oh, you can find me on the internet at CourtneyMillerOboe.com. It's a very original website, I know. And you can also find me on YouTube and, of course, the University of Iowa faculty website. And you can follow me on Instagram, Iowa Oboes, and Twitter and Facebook. So thank you, ladies, so much for spending this time with me this morning.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you. As always, you can find us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can email us at doublereeddish@gmail.com. We always love hearing from you.
And don't forget to join us next time for our 1-year anniversary special episode with guest Judith LeClaire, Principal Bassoon of the New York Philharmonic. This is not one you want to miss.